Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand TV. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal brand and business development company. I want to take you on a journey through another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal stories, business conversations, and tips to improve your brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand TV series, you will differentiate yourself from the competition and build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build confidence, and reflect who you are. Building your 5-star personal brand is a great way to improve your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or any of my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh@5starbdm.com. Now, let's begin with our next episode on the Follow the Brand TV. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Follow the Brand TV series. Tonight, we are live with a person that I truly respect. He has been an industry leader here in South Florida for a number of years. He is beloved in the community. And we're going to talk about ruthless honesty. My friend tonight, Pete Delatour, went through a transformation a few years back that a lot of us can identify with, whether it was through a life-threatening disease or just life-threatening in many different ways. You could have went through a job loss, or you lost a family member, or you just had many, many challenges internally and externally along life's way. We often come across these crutch in the road, the dark time in our lives, and we are challenged to either continue in the darkness or to be a light upon our path and the path of others. So I'm going to introduce to you tonight's guest, Pete Delatour. But before I do, I want you to view this particular video episode first, and then we'll bring up Pete. Thank you for joining tonight.
Every one of us is a visionary. You talk about that individual was a visionary and that leader was a visionary. I think every one of us is a visionary. Why? Because we're always looking to the future. The ruthless honesty comes from the heart. And I believe that if we can adopt that mindset and be as honest and authentic as we can possibly be, starting with ourselves, we then have the capacity to do that with others, whether it's family, community, or the business.
There he is. Pete, how are you doing this evening?
I got one word for you, buddy. Wow, that was really cool. I may not sleep tonight out of the excitement I have.
I'm going to tell the audience, they might not realize that, but I created that video just last night for Pete, and you did this first time you saw it.
Yeah. I'm speechless. I don't know how much you're going to get out of me after that.
We're going to get the real deal. We're going to get the ruthless honesty that we just now talked about. That's a great expression. I am so glad that first of all that you got some excitement out of that, you got some true emotion out of that, some good adrenaline, and then we can really unpack some things. We just had a great conversation about not even 10, 15 minutes ago about some real life issues. We're going to talk about your real life. And I wanted the audience to know that what we're talking about hits home for me as one of my really good friends. I just learned was diagnosed with lung cancer. And when you go through a life-threatening disease, you wonder how the emotions what you're going through. How do you support? What kind of support do you? I mean, it's a journey. It's something. We're going to talk to Pete tonight, and we're going to first back it up before we take out, the clinics out here, right? We're going to back up just a little bit and to give us a little bit more about your background. You're very well known in the community for business development and leadership. Let's talk about that.
I mean, when I look back at my life and how it all started, my professional career was really when I was 18 years old. I had just graduated from high school. By the way, my parents were Cuban immigrants. Left Cuba in the mid 1950s. Moved to New York. I was born there, and then they moved down when I was about 5 years old. And I grew up in the city of Hialeah, Florida, the city of progress. They still say that. And true story. Back in the day, Hialeah, early 60s, we were one of the first Cuban families to move there. Okay. And the experience that we had, all I can tell you is that Hialeah was so redneck, it made Mobile, Alabama look like Berkeley, California.
That's something.
That's what we experienced, as a little boy in that environment, and what my parents and so many others eventually that moved experienced. And not just Hialeah, but all Miami. But anyways, I grew up and played basketball. That was kind of like my calling at a young age, and played it in grade school through high school, and I was a good player. I wasn't great, but I was decent. And never had time to have a full-time job, or I never really thought about business or anything like that. But I had little part-time jobs during the off season, and finally, I graduated from high school, and I just said, I need to get a full-time job, and because I got to make some money, and that was my that was my decision then. And then by accident, I got into the flower importing industry. And it was a young industry at the time. And I was with a company that was just one of maybe 8 to 10 companies. Today, it's over 100 companies importing flowers from Latin America and other places and distributing around the country. But I remember joining, and everything we did was on the phone. All the sales, we were selling to wholesale florists and from time to time retailers, and we're just selling boxes of fresh cut flowers. So it was like a commodity, and everything was on the phone, and everything was kind of like the stock market. It was all based on price and pushing and this, that, and the other. And I remember that my boss, so the owner of the company, within a month got married and went off on a 1-week honeymoon. And so I'm 18 years old, and I've been given the keys to the company, handle it for a week, from selling the flowers to preparing the invoices, typing everything up, to handling all the boxes of flowers, loading up in a truck, going to the airport, distributing, coming back, balancing, and doing that for the whole week. Now, what was really good is that I didn't have a lot of time to think. I just had to do, which then at that point, the doing and the implementing became ingrained in my DNA. And it's something that through today is a big part of who I am. Is I'm a doer, and I don't like to give stuff too much time thinking it over, because if you do, you talk yourself out of most things, and then you end up doing nothing.
True.
So I just did it, and I remember selling everything out. And when the guy came back from his honeymoon, he goes, "This is amazing. You moved out all the product." And And so I look back at that as probably the start of everything for me, because through the years and everything I've ever done, any new industry, any new project, I've had to think on my feet without a lot of resources. I've had to be resourceful and do things and just act and execute and act. And so it's been, sometimes it hasn't been a good thing, but in many cases it has. And it's I think I've been reinventing myself before I even knew what the word was.
Well, I tell you, just listening to that story, you got thrown into the deep end of the pool is what we call that. Like, you know what? We're just gonna throw you in the deep end. You got to swim out because there's no lifeguard on duty because he was on a honeymoon, right? So,
Yeah.
but he must have believed in you, even though you didn't believe in yourself, or you probably didn't realize it that you had the ability to do it. And then when he came back, he probably wasn't so surprised. Like, hey, you handled your business, and that's a great skill set and a great realization to have when you're young, that you can conduct business, that you know what you're doing, and you can speak confidently to someone else about this business. Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, again, I had no choice. I mean, that when we're faced in life, kind of like being put up against the wall and needing to act and do something, okay, instead of waiting for the magic answer, the magic moment, and you just got to act. That's happened to me a lot in my life, and I like to tell the story that especially in later years when I was in economic development and I left an organization I was with, and there was just it just had to happen. But and I tell the story. It's like if I'm on a cruise ship and I fall overboard, and it's the middle of the night, and there's total darkness except for the lights coming off the cruise ship.
Yeah.
And then being thrown into deep waters. And as the seconds and minutes move forward, that ship is going and moving and moving. That ship didn't even know that you went overboard. And as time and the minutes go by, that ship starts to disappear and disappear. Then you're left in deep waters in total darkness. And all you can think about is, how the heck am I going to survive this?
Yeah.
And somehow surviving it. It's like the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks. Okay. Did he plan to be in an airplane crash? Did he plan to be a castaway on a remote island? If you see that movie, and for me it's so fascinating, he had to look around and just use whatever he had, all the resources, and just create as he went forward. And I think that in today's world, we don't have enough of that. People are waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity, and that doesn't happen like that. I think it's in our hands to create those moments.
You have to have the opportunity, and what you said is so important. And I still remember Wilson. I think it was Wilson was his
Wilson,
yeah. Because he had to survive mentally, and he had to believe, and he had to do what he needed to do to get to that next level. I think a lot of us, we find ourselves in peril a lot of times, and sometimes we think I'm the only one, or life has something against me. But we start to realize, I had this realization that we are all on this obstacle course. We have our own obstacles. Your obstacle course is different from mine, and so forth and so forth. But we all have them. And this is how we can come together as community. Because you just like, yeah, so remember that movie with Jaws when they sat back and they swapped stories about their shark attacks. Like, this particular wound came from this and that. We all have our wounds. We've all had these moments, but we don't always talk about it. I think a lot of times we feel, to get some ruthless honesty here, that everybody's life is perfect. And that can be further from the truth. We all have these things.
Millions of people in the world are living lives of quiet desperation. Okay.
That's a quotable.
And they They know they're not happy. They know they're uncomfortable. But so many of them sadly have given up and accepted that this is just the way it's going to be. And I'm just going to survive and just take it one day at a time. I have a friend of mine a dear friend of mine, and just a great guy, great wisdom. But when you ask him the question, so how you doing? He goes, I'm just struggling. And that's his patent answer. I'm struggling. I go, yeah, there are struggles in life. But I believe our mindset, if we're thinking all the time that we're struggling, guess what's going to happen? We're going to continue to struggle.
Correct.
Because that's our reality. And we just we wave the white flag. I go, that's just the way it is, It's tough. Life is tough. I go, yeah, we know that. But then what?
we all are on that journey. That's the thing. Like you said, do you quit running the race? You know there's hurdles. Do you just don't run the race? But that's how you get stronger, right?
Absolutely.
I want to ask you this, because you're solving a problem with this book that you've come out with. You're solving a big problem. And before we even talk about the book, I want to talk about how you solve these problems for your clients in South Florida business community. I mean, what were you doing before your transformation?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I've been involved in different industries. Like I said, I was in the flower importing industry for maybe 18 years. And then I did a major pivot into financial services. In fact, I call myself the 720 guy. I didn't go around once. I went around twice. I did a 720 from an industry that was a tangible product, perishable product. There was no loyalty. It was just a price game. It's like selling a commodity. There was no personal interaction. Everything was on the phone. You know how so much about everything is behind the computer and Zoom. Well, back then, all I did was the phone. I never saw my clients. Everything was just move it. And then I just got in my early 30s. I go, I'm not going to do this the rest of my life. So what am I going to do? And so for some reason, odd reason, I had a fascination with the financial world. Mm-hmm. So I took a whole year to investigate and research. And I finally took the big leap into an industry. It was back then called the Equitable Company, and then it became AXA, and they're back to being Equitable today. So I, got my insurance license, my securities. I did everything there. And I reinvented myself without even knowing that I was reinventing myself. And I got into an industry that was, non-tangible. It was based on relationships, and I didn't have a product to sell. It was just the trust and the interaction face to face, which I had never done. Totally. So I did the complete opposite of what I was doing. And I went forward and I did that. And I learned and I had success there. And did that for 11, 12 years and helped clients. And even back then I was bringing different people together and I was partnering up with professionals to help my clients and achieve their goals. I finally, I went into a personal hiccup in 2004 and went through some stuff. And then, I ended up running a new business economic development organization in the city of the Route. And what led me there is that for the years I was in financial services, I grew my business through being involved in business groups and chambers and networking. And I got a really good story to say on that, if you can indulge me for a minute.
Go right ahead.
About 6 months after I got into financial services, I ran into a dead end. I came from an industry where I really didn't like the social world. I just thought it was a waste of time. And I didn't like cocktail events and happy hours. It's just I did my work and I went home and that was it. I really didn't like it. And when I went into the financial services, I had a natural market I was going to tap into. But when I ran out of prospects, I was left with what now? It's 6 months later and I ran out of people. Okay.
Yeah.
I thank God that I was part of an organization. I was really involved in the community in all the major chambers of commerce. And so I got involved. And one afternoon, I'll never forget, back in the days, remember when we had fax machines?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That eventually became just a machine to receive lunch menus eventually. Okay. Well, It was like in the middle of the summer, like a 4:30 in the afternoon, fax commenced. No, this organization in Coral Gables has a trustee reception, and in an hour they meet, or it starts. So I went to my boss at the time. I go, listen, should I go to this thing? He goes, you got anything else to do? I go, no, go ahead, do it. So I went to. And it was this car dealership where they had this reception in Coral Gables. Doesn't exist anymore. And it was the smallest car dealership I've ever seen in my life. And the lobby wasn't very big. And I opened the door, and there must have been like 120 people there. They're packed like sardines. And I walked in there, and for some reason back then, either my vision was a lot better or the name tags were like huge. I could almost read every single name tag in the room. And then I started to look around and scan the room, and I saw 5 to 6 other competing companies in the same room. And then to make it worse, there was like 7 or 8 people from my office there.
Oh, yeah.
And in a split second, I said to myself, who are you kidding? What are you doing here? How fast can you get out of this room? I says, well, I think I need to stay because everybody saw me walk in. And if I walk right out, it's going to look really bad. So I just started to talk to people. Didn't even know what I was doing. Met a lot of people, and I would say, how you doing? My name's this. What's your name? I go, listen, we're here to meet a lot of people tonight, but I'd like to get to know you. Can we get together for coffee the next few days? And so I did. The third person I met a few days later. That individual never became my client, but that individual introduced me to enough people that it represented 70% of all the business I did for the next 18 months.
Wow.
So I said, this kind of works. Maybe I should keep doing this. So that became how I grew my business. And then I became a sales manager, and I recruited agents. But then when all of that happened, and I became part of this new group that started in the city of Doral, from a volunteer who was very involved and got involved with committees. Now I switched hats and I became the staff. So I became executive director. So now it was about providing services and opportunities for the members and creating and networking and helping them. So that's, and it was a great 7-year run doing that. And I learned a lot. I grew a lot. And to this day, I have people coming up to me and tell me, you ran a great organization. You helped me grow my business. I was just starting, and look where I am today. So, it's personal satisfaction for me to do that. And then I got out of that. And then I just said, I love teaching. So let me start training. And I created training all the way back when I was in the flower business. I would create training programs from scratch. I was in my mid-20s. And I just created, and that's another part of me that I didn't know was there, but in later years I discovered my creativity. And I created things from scratch, and and not all of them worked, but a lot of them apparently did. So that was my life pretty much leading up to what happened to me.
Well, but even before that, weren't you in media? Weren't you doing some podcasting?
Well, that's right. I just one little important piece there. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for the reminder, sir. Yeah, I'm going to say it was 14 years ago. When I was with this business organization in Doral. It was a Saturday morning. We had a tabletop exhibition, and next to us was this new radio station that just came out, the first of its kind, of all business radio station. It was 880 AM The Biz, which is part of the Salem Media Group National. And started talking to the guy, and he invited me to be interviewed at the end of that next week on the radio. And I did this, and it was like a 5-minute interview. And when we were done, I go, that was fun. He goes to me, hey, you're pretty good. And so he brought me back a few more times. And then eventually, then in the summer of 2010, I started my own radio show, which was affiliated with this business organization. And I started with a half-hour show, then went into an hour. And then when I left, the very first thing I did was, let me just start my own radio show. So this was back in 2011. I went from a 1-hour show to a 2-hour show. And then I took a big leap of faith. Mm-hmm. In September 2013, I remember asking the general manager of the station, listen, I got a show at 10 o'clock in the morning. Is there like a better time slot for me? Maybe 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 8 o'clock in the morning. He goes, well, I don't really have anything right now. Then one day he goes, hey, I got 8 o'clock in the morning available. I go, you're kidding. Drive time. What day of the week? And he goes to me, I go, no. Every day.
Oh, wow.
So I thought about that and talked to a lot of people. And in September 2013, I started a daily talk show, a 1-hour talk show, 8 o'clock in the morning, drive time. And when I started that, I remember people saying, what are you going to talk about? I go, I'm not sure, but I think there's enough here. And what I did, I created a new concept that was not in the market at all, had never been seen before, where I would, there were real estate shows and there were shows with attorneys. And
yeah, sure.
But what I did was a comprehensive show that mimicked, in many ways, the organization I was running in Doral. I go, so we work with different industries. And what I said, I'm just going to report on what's going on in industries. I'm going to bring in the experts. I'm going to bring entrepreneurs to tell their stories. Everything I was doing, I brought it to this show. And I was on this show with this station for like 3.5 years, and it just grew and it blossomed. And in between all of that, because I know that we had talked about this before, I was awarded in 2 consecutive years the Small Business Media Advocate of the Year.
Yeah.
And this came about through one of the many segments I had. I had one called Let's Talk SBA, which is every Tuesday morning from 8 to 8:30. And I would bring in representatives from the SBA and entrepreneurs and business. We just talked about everything. And I just became a big proponent for small business. And they said, man, we love what you're doing here. And then I was awarded in 2 consecutive years, South Florida and the state of Florida.
Oh, man, that is wonderful. And I saw that and I was like,
Yeah.
This is wonderful. Now, how many years did you do that?
The Daily Show?
Yeah.
Well, I left the station because they I was paying for my time and it wasn't inexpensive, but then they had a change of management and everybody wanted my time slot. Everybody. And they were offering big money. And the management go, listen, I got somebody here's going to pay triple. I go, you know something? Give it to them. There's no way. Because you're paying for a show, you're looking for sponsors, and it's an ongoing battle to do that. And you're always playing catch up. And I just said, I can't do it. So within 1 month, I started an internet station. Within 1 month.
You started an internet station back 10 years ago.
Actually started in 2016.
Oh, okay. Got it. Well, yeah.
Not a show, but a station that was running 24/7. It was called World Business Radio Network. WBRN.
Nobody was even doing that back then.
Very few people. No podcasts, very limited. Even 7 years ago, there was a handful of people doing that.
Yeah.
But now it's exploded. Now every other person has a podcast now.
Right.
But I was on the radio doing talk shows and interviewing people 13, 14 years ago. And I've interviewed probably in excess of 2,500 people during that time, locally, nationally, and globally.
Yeah, you made a big name for yourself.
And if you can imagine what I've learned and what that experience was like.
Well, we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, first, what we're going to do, we're going to go for a break because we're at break. But when we come back, as you now told us the before, right? Now we're going to get into the change, like what was happening, lead us up to the point of realization for yourself. And then, take us through how, that after effect, where you are right now, like in your life's mission, because man, I've already intrigued by your story, talked about your chutzpah, right? I'm gonna get up and do it. I'm just a doer, and how you. And I want everybody to hear this. I talked to so many different people about networking and digital networking and social networking. Like, no, I don't want to do that. I think it's a waste of time. Man, you framed a story like you had that mindset, and then you tried it, and look at the success it brought you and how that guided you along life's way to where you became, this world-renowned, award-winning broadcast host. Isn't that amazing?
it's crazy. And I look back and I said, really, what have I done that's that big and that important? I mean, I'm just doing what I think I have to do here. So apparently it's done some good.
No, you were a pioneer of your time and still of your time. We're going to go to break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about your transformation.
Good.
It was never my intentions, I would say, to necessarily envision myself as being the senior vice president of audit and compliance when I first got here. But one thing was always, kept me, I guess, progressing through life is always putting my best foot forward. Audit and compliance is not a revenue generating function per se, and we don't necessarily directly impact the bottom line of the organization, but from a mitigating and preventative standpoint, we may identify opportunities from an operational perspective or compliance standpoint that may lead to down the road impact indirectly in regards to from a cost saving perspective, and also a revenue enhancement opportunity.
You're working on that type of scenario, the relationships are so key, that you have the relationships with the people you are, your team, and the relationships you can establish with the people you're trying to come together with. The difference now is, as we think about diversity and inclusion and equity, it's about not only do we need to get people, have a workforce that is, indicative of the community that the organization is serving, but how do you ensure that within that people feel a part of the organization? So that's where the inclusion part comes in. Well, I think it's both exposure and experience. And you can't get the experience if you don't get the opportunities.
Well, look, healthcare in the United States is, 19% of our gross domestic product. We spend almost $4 trillion a year on healthcare. It's the biggest business in the United States, and that's why it garners so much attention. If you look at what we spend at the federal level on Medicare and on care for the ill in this country, and certainly on the commercial side, and nowadays in the United States, about 40% of Americans have high deductible insurance plans. It is a big business, and I would tell you, Grant, that it's a big business that we need to get better at. Today, the amount of transparency that we have in healthcare today is more than it's ever been. So when it comes to things like being able to get online and look at provider ratings commentary on experience, those types of things. We have more of that at our fingertips today than we did 10, 15, or 20 years ago. Reverend Martin Luther King, I mean, who embodied equality greater than him, right? I mean, here in the United States, we love to credit our forefathers. You know, all men are created equally. But I got news for you, man. I mean, if you listen to my mom, right, it goes beyond, it goes way before that, right? That comes from God. All of us are made in the image of God, right? So how in the world do we select this group are the haves and this group are the have-nots?
If you can figure out a way to network, connect, create, and get your 5 to 10 minutes of FaceTime, they're happy to receive it. I'm happy to receive it. But make sure that what you have to say is impactful. Community is what raised me. A song that said, you can do anything regardless of where you're from, regardless of where your upbringing, we support you. I think the differentiator with us is that we have truly leaned in on culture. Culture is what keeps people. Something that I learned very early in my career, thankfully, is that if you're always chasing a higher salary or you're always chasing a title, you're gonna find it. If you go out looking for a higher salary, you're gonna find it. If you want a bigger title, you're gonna find it. But culture and the way that you feel when you step into the hospital, the way that you feel when you step into your workplace, that you're not gonna find everywhere.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed our conversation so far with Pete. Pete, this is wonderful. I want you to take us to that point in time. Let's go to 2021, right before your diagnosis. Tell us about what you were doing and just take us through your transformation.
Well, in 2020, COVID hit, and I got it. I think it was August, the week after my birthday. And that was, that's what I call the real COVID, because I had a couple of other times the last couple of years where I tested positive, but that was a real one. I think everybody that got hit in 2020, that was what I called the real COVID. And that's when a lot of great people passed away and all that. But I remember getting in, and the good news is that you know, it wasn't as bad as others. And I think I was like 4 weeks, more than anything else, after the first 7-9 days where I had a little fever and I had all these, you know, I couldn't taste my food, but, you know, and I went through just being very sluggish. And then finally I got out of it, beginning of September, and everything was great. At the end of 2020, I started to feel some pains in my legs. Started my left leg, started feeling my right leg, and my wife and I traveled between the holidays, Christmas and New Year. We went to Nashville, Tennessee, you know, change it up, and, you know, and we spent about a week there. But I remember the whole time I was there, especially getting up in the mornings, it took me a while. Just walking, I almost couldn't walk. I'd had to kind of warm myself up, and that was the whole trip. I was going through that, going in and out of Ubers and trying to, everything was painful, just moving. And I tell the story in my book. But when I got back to Miami right after the New Year, I spent about a month. I sleepless nights. The pain spread to my arms. It was really bad.
Yeah.
And finally, I went to see a doctor, ran a bunch of blood work, and they did a bunch of things, including checking my PSA, because there was, one of the symptoms of prostate cancer is pains in your legs. I go, let's just go ahead and do that. So they ran a bunch of tests, and I was diagnosed, and I went to see, a rheumatologist because my blood count was very elevated. So I had something called polymyalgia rheumatica, which is something that could hit anybody over 50 years old. It's kind of a distant cousin of lupus, and it's arthritic. It has all that stuff. And I started to take some medication for that. Within a few days, I started to feel like almost 100% better. And I go, I'm out of the woods. This is great, But along the way, I get the blood work results from my PSA. Now, for someone at this point in their lives, at my age, the high number, there's like a range, the high number shouldn't go beyond 4.
Yeah.
I was a 7.9, so I was double.
Ooh.
And that was a little bit of a wake-up call, the initial one. I went to see a urologist, says, listen, we can either do a biopsy or we can take some more blood tests, but your numbers are going to have to come down dramatically. When I went to see him again about a month and a half later, my number had tripled to 12.
Wow.
So whatever was happening fast. He did the biopsy, right? I think it was right around Memorial Day weekend. He confirmed the fact that I had prostate cancer, and it was pretty aggressive. And at that moment was, that when you hear that and you hear the word cancer,
Yeah.
He kept talking about different options. I saw his lips moving, but I couldn't hear anything because I was just drowned with that word. And your life flashes in front of you. And everything, you can imagine, fear, anxiety, why me, why now, everything runs through your mind. When I settled down, I looked at all my options and decided to have surgery, which happened July 7, 2021.
Okay.
And a week later, when I went to see the doctor and got the pathology report, he said, you're probably going to have to, before I left the hospital, you're probably going to have to do some radiation too. I think we caught everything, but just in case. When I went to see him a week later, he says, you're 100% cancer free.
Oh, wow.
And brother, to this day, almost 2 years later, I keep doing blood work every so often. I'm cancer free.
Yeah.
So when that happened, and when you think about all the hundreds of thousands of people that have different, whether it's prostate cancer or whatever, and they don't make it through, I looked at me, I go, okay, God pulled me through this. There's a reason I went through this. The reason I went through all this experience, all this roller coaster, all these emotions and everything. So, and I just literally felt that God sat me down and says, okay, my friend, I just pulled you through that. Now I have some work for you. I have marching orders for you. And I want you to tell this story.
Yes.
And I want you to tell the story of what happened to you and the transformation, everything that you went through. So this book, okay, Connect with Ruthless Honesty, which is to my right back there. I got the book sitting there.
I see it. Yeah.
Is, like I say, the wake-up call of wake-up calls for me. And it forced me to look at every aspect of my life. And so, I said, obviously, the best way to tell the story is to write this book. So I went ahead with this project that took about 15 to 16 months. Mm-hmm. And it's not a book about cancer. It's about the wake-up call and what happened to me and the transformation, what I learned, what I did, and the message that I have for the readers. Because every one of us has either gone through a wake-up call is in the middle of one or will eventually go through a wake-up call. And by the way, wake-up calls are not just, bad stuff. You could have an awakening to discover something about yourself, which is unbelievable. But the question becomes, what do you do with that wake-up call?
Wow. So a lot to unpack there. And I want people to really hone in on that. When you're going through things and then you get some very disturbing news that it's a life stopper. You have to stop. Life has just set you down, taking you off the field, put you, in the bench, and gave you some very, very, disturbing news. You had to go through that, and you had a choice to make. You either lay down and take it, you fight, or you just give up. I like the fighter in you. And man, I wish I would have been there when the doctor came in and gave you that result and saying you were cancer free. I'm talking about you just won the Super Bowl, right? You had to be pretty elated.
Well, I got to tell you, all along the battle, I mentioned a little while ago, my wife Jacqueline, who was with me through everything I just mentioned, the COVID experience, dealing with this other issue, and then the news of the cancer. And just every step of the way has supported me beyond words. And especially when I had the surgery and the post-surgery and she has been the catalyst. And remember I said before, I was the guy that spent years and years talking about writing a book, and then this happened. And then, she was there and says, I want you to finally do this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to support you in any way I can, so that you can, because you got to tell this story. And so, I thank her. I thank my brother. I thank my brother Phil, who had just finished writing his own book, and many, many others who encouraged me through the journey of going through the prostate cancer, and then of course then the writing of the book. And so today, it's published, it's out there, and it's funny because when you write a book and you go through it, and you go through the editing process, and you go through all that stuff, and every author goes through this, and then when it's done, it's like there's that's it, man. You got to put it out there. How much are you going to perfect this thing? And so you put it out there, and it's like, is anybody going to like this? Is anybody going? Am I going to just make people put this book down after 1 or 2 pages? And I got to tell you, I am humbled, and I've been humbled so many times in my life. I'm now humbled by the early feedback that I'm getting from.
I think you're going to get enormous feedback
as
this information gets out, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing this show tonight. We're going to get this information out. We're going to go for a short break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about your launch, where they can get the book, and all the other information that you've got going on, because this week is launch week.
You got it, brother. We want to
make sure that we get that out there. So let's go to break, and then we'll come right back.
All right.
5-Star BDM, Brand Development Masters, is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for the small to mid-sized business and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share business development challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement and operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. This results in more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Visit www.5starbdm.com today to learn more.
Are you looking to improve your LinkedIn profile and reach a wider audience? Social selling is an effective way for you to generate leads and close deals. But it does have its challenges. Some common problems we saw with social selling include lack of visibility. If your profile is not optimized or you're not actively participating in groups or sharing content, it can be difficult to get noticed on LinkedIn. Number 2, lack of personalization. Some businesses struggle with personalizing their outreach and messaging, which can lead to low response rates and a lack of engagement. Also, difficulty targeting the right prospects. It can be difficult to identify and target the right prospects on social media, especially if you don't have access to robust targeting tools. And number 4, outdated content. If your LinkedIn profile or content is not up to date, it can give the impression that you're not actively engaged on the platform or that your skills and experience are not current. And lastly, poor quality content and not leveraging video and picture to convey ideas. To solve these problems, the 5-star BDM LinkedIn Optimization Social Selling Video course. Sign up today to improve your social selling opportunities.
Follow the Brand TV broadcast host, Grant McGaugh, as he visits with top executives and entrepreneurs to find out their secrets of success with their personal brand. Follow the Brand TV broadcast host as he focuses on brand development to build better relationships, bring value to your business, relationships, and career. You will enjoy listening to each episode that is tailored to speak to you directly. If you're looking for this type of clarity in terms of building your brand, you have tuned into the right station. Each episode will help you to shape a conversation in the 5-star BDM network of 20,000 professionals and become a springboard for your corporate engagement and business opportunities. Each guest will frame their story in the areas of personal branding, business development, career development, financial empowerment, and technology innovation. Grant McGaugh explains why he is the CEO and owner of his own professional career. Grant is an accomplished business leader and entrepreneur who wants to give back to individuals to grow their personal brand strategy. Tune in as he weaves his story about new possibilities, while to you exceed expectations. If you love storytelling, this show will make for fun.
Pete.
How do I follow that?
Say one foot after the other. No, you've got your book right behind you, which is a beautiful book. Love the cover. And can you grab that book? Is that far away? Can you bring it up to the?
Well, I just happen to have another one right here.
Oh well, that's even better. You know,
Yeah.
he's right there.
I got 5,000 copies of my books in my room. No, I'm kidding.
Well, hopefully you will be down to 5 when we're all said and done.
Yeah, exactly.
But tell us more about the launch, what you got going on, how people can get a hold of the book, that type of thing.
Well, it's very easy to get a hold of my book. Go to my website, which is PeteConnects.com. Pete, and then the word connects with an S at the end.com. You'll go right into my website and you'll see the front cover image right when you get in there. You click that, it takes you right to Amazon. Get your copy, and then hopefully read it. And what's important here, and I want to emphasize this, is a lot of folks that have given me the feedback have read through most of the book, or if not all of it. And I want that opportunity in the hands of as many people as possible. And there are several ways to get the word out. I'm absolutely grateful and humble that you've brought me on your show today, which I think is an incredible platform, social media, all those things. But there's something called Amazon, and there's something called algorithms. And what I humbly ask for all those that pick up a copy of the book is to post a review on Amazon.
Sure.
Just a few thoughts, because the more that happens, then they have those mechanisms in place where they just start, promoting your book and getting it in front of as many people. And I want this book in the hands of as many people as possible, because this book And I'm going to tell you straight out, I didn't write it. This was inspired by God, every word, because I got stuck a million times. I didn't know where to go, what to say next. And I remember just stopping and praying and meditating and just, listen, I need help here.
Yeah.
And so when I read this, it's really coming from God. So if that's the case, then these words need to get in front of a lot of people, because, you know, one of the saddest things in the world is people living with limiting beliefs, living a life of mediocrity when they don't have to, you know, falling short, not being the best version of themselves, and really attaining the freedom to succeed in life. And the starting point is to connect with ruthless honesty, starting with yourself and others. And once we can do that and make that part of our lives, then everything and anything is possible in our lives.
Man, when you said that again, because ruthless honesty, you've got to step into the mirror of yourself. And it's unfortunate we have to go through certain things in life before we actually do that. But it's very, very important to look at your life as a story and
Yep.
step back and like, what is this story about? Is this a tragedy? Is this a love story? Is this a soap opera? Is this, a comedy? Or this a horror film? But it's your life, and being able to put it together. One thing we talked about before we got on air was that Pete was saying, you know what? I'm an everyday guy.
Yeah.
And because I'm an everyday guy, I want that every person who, no matter what you're going through, to have an opportunity to know, as you said earlier, about being in the water out there and you fall off, let's say it was a cruise ship or whatnot, that there's a light that you can first become aware of and then begin to work with to light your way to a greater day.
It really is, because we everything you just said right now, by the way, it could be a horror story, it could be a love story. That's life. Every one of us has experienced all those things you just said right there. The love, the excitement, the whatever, the horrors, there are horrors in life, and there are things that are happening that are very, very dark. But that's life, and we all go through it. And I mentioned, another thing that held me back from writing a book. I'm not this world famous person, ex government leader, great athlete, and I want to tell my story from a point of a regular guy, because I think most people are there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think most people relate to the Michael Jordans of the world. They'll find his story inspiring, but they can't really connect. I think people will connect with others that are, it's not that they're just like them, but they're regular folks. And that's what I mean. Everyone has a story to tell. It's one of the things that I talk about in this book. One of the first things is that your story matters.
Yes.
Because your story, whatever it is that you've gone through, is unique and can help at least one person.
That's it.
And if you can do that, then everything falls into place.
Well, life is worth living. That your life is not lived. You haven't lived your life in vain. My grandmother used to say that all the time. You have not lived your life in vain. This has been wonderful, Pete. We're going to wrap up. Before we do, now we know where to get the book. You're having some launch. Are you going to be at any events? Anybody get a book signing? Anything of that nature?
Well, tomorrow I'm going to start with I have a private event for close family and friends that were there throughout the whole journey. My experience with cancer, the book. So I wanted to do something special for them and have an intimate affair, which I'm going to have tomorrow evening. But moving forward, I have plans to open it up. And I've been a guy that's been creating events for years. So I'm going to create my own event, and they're going to be called Pete Connects, which is
Nice.
my new DBA.
Yeah.
And I'm going to I'm going to have open book signing events. They're all going to remain. They'll be limited, but I want to go to different spots and venues in Miami, and different geographical areas, and open it up open it up to other folks to share their stories and get to know me a little bit better. So stay tuned. That's coming
that's
out
been
soon.
wonderful. This has been great, Pete. Thank you for sharing that. We're going to tune in. Remember, PeteConnects.com. Take a look, read the book, and then find out when he's going to have one of these openings or one of these book readings and get it signed. This has been wonderful. Thank you for being a guest on the Follow Brand TV.
Thank you, my brother.
You're welcome. Good night.
Take care.
But it was Haynes Rice who said to me in 1975, Cliff, there's a real future in health law, and you ought to check it out. Now, and I will tell you, in 1975, there was no such a thing as health law.
Right.
My firm started in 1974, and it was working in the health area, but it didn't consider itself a health law firm because there was no such a thing. I'm working on now is how we combine health equity and value-based purchasing in the Medicaid space so that we create incentives for people to address the issues about which health inequity exists.
Hey everyone, it's Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM and host of the award-winning Follow the Brand podcast and TV series, where I help you to build a 5-star brand that people will follow. My genius is personal brand development through intelligent communication and helping you achieve your business and career goals. I am a requested speaker on digital technology and brand development issues. I want to work with you to increase the value of your current opportunities while attracting new ones. Every one of you is unique, and we all share challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. As a super connector, I work with you as an executive coach to guide you along the complicated business and career development road, providing the enhancement tools and information you need to succeed. Together, I will help you succeed in today's challenging business climate. I will evaluate and measure your progress. Best of all, I am right alongside you every step of the way. Build the brand called you. Genius.